The NBA playoffs are almost set for round 1, as we await the results of the upcoming play-in tournament. However, not all the final standings and opening round series are dependent on that mini-tournament, and a case of that is the confirmed first round series between the New York Knicks and Atlanta Hawks. In today's video, I'll be taking a look at the opening round matchup for the New York Knicks and Atlanta Hawks and predicting the series, each team's strengths and weaknesses, the players who need to step up, the key to success, every little detail. Before we start, if you are new here and enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe for more NBA content like this. I'm trying to reach 17,000 subscribers, so all support would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, with that being said, let's take a look at this first round matchup. The New York Knicks have had a phenomenal season and surpassed all expectations. They've leaped into a legit playoff side out of nowhere and have finished the season as the 4th seed with a record of 40-31 as of recording, which is crazy to say considering that almost no one gave this team even the slightest of chances to be a playoff side this season. The surprising year is off the back of Julius Randle, who has transformed himself into a legitimate all-star player and #1 option, as well as the brilliant coaching of Tom Thibodeau. He's completely changed the culture of New York for good, and as a result, the Knicks now have some of the best defense in the league that just recently suffocated the likes of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on national television, as well as ever-improving offense that is making them scarier by the minute. The Knicks have already surprised everyone, but they'll be looking to do more of that these playoffs with a deep postseason run. As for the Atlanta Hawks, they've been great this season too, and honestly extremely underrated for the latter half of the year. They had a slow start to the season, looking like a middle ground team, but with a quick coaching change to Nate McMillan, everything started going right for the Hawks, and they've now climbed the standings to the 5th seed, an impressive way to end the season. The supporting cast around Trae Young has been fantastic, enabling him to take his game to new heights this season, as well as making the Hawks a much deeper, more versatile team that could be tricky to handle come playoff time. The Hawks could be great or they could struggle these playoffs, and we're about to find out how they do against one of the new fan favorite teams in the comp. With that said, however, it's time to take a look at the strengths and weaknesses of each team and how they could utilize these in the first round series. Let's start with the strengths of the Knicks first. Defense. The Knicks have been elite defensively from the get-go this season, and though many people expected it to drop off, it just hasn't. They've remained as the best team on that end practically all year, suffocating superstars from getting a grasp on their game. This has been implemented by new head coach Tom Thibodeau, as I mentioned earlier, and all the Knicks players have bought into that defensive mindset, and it's simply changed the culture of this organization. The Knicks have the best defensive rating in the league as of when riding, as well as leading the league in opponent 3-point percentage and opponent field goal percentage. Against Atlanta, this will be essential, as the Hawks are a top 10 offense in the league. Shutting down Trae Young will be key, as I'll go in more depth on later, and it's why I think this strength of New York will be incredibly important in this series. 3-point shooting. The Knicks are also a great team shooting from range, second in the league in 3-point percentage. In the playoffs, being able to have that versatility offensively will be key, and if the Knicks can rely on their shooters to knock down shots, they are going to be much better off and in a far better position to win. So those are the strengths of the New York Knicks. What are their weaknesses? The biggest weakness of the Knicks to me is their offense, and in particular, their offensive consistency and versatility. Sometimes this team dominates offensively, running their sets to perfection and getting the exact looks that they want, but sometimes their offense can feel forced and slow, leading to very average efficiency. The Knicks simply don't have enough consistent offensive creators outside of Randle and sometimes D Rose, and that can hurt them at times. Their defense does make up for it every now and then, but in a long 7-game series potentially, the lack of offense could come back to bite them, especially against a fantastic offensive team like Atlanta. So those are the strengths and weaknesses of the New York Knicks. What about the Atlanta Hawks? The Atlanta Hawks have two big strengths to me that I think will be key in this series, and one is free throw shooting. The New York Knicks give up over 20 fouls per game, which ranks them as a top fouling team in the association this season. So it's likely in a slow physical playoff series, the Hawks are going to get a lot of free throws. Luckily for them, they're a top 3 team in free throws attempted this season and are a top 4 team in free throw percentage, meaning they're getting to the line a lot and making the most of it. Clearly, against the Knicks, that's going to be vital to getting them over the line, and it's why I have it as a big strength of theirs today. Another big strength of the Hawks is rebounding, as they rank 6th in both rebounds per game and offensive rebounds per game. With Mitchell Robinson out of the Knicks picture, I feel like the Hawks' big players will be able to dominate the glass if they're physical enough, and by minimizing the Knicks' offensive rebounding, I think it could allow them to win this series. It's not a huge area of focus for the series, but I think if the Hawks can win the rebounding battle, as they statistically should, I think they'll be in for a good time this round. However, even with those strengths, one big concern and weakness for the Hawks is their defense. They rank 21st in defensive rating this season and don't have a lot of elite level defenders, particularly on the perimeter. With Trae Young spending a lot of time on the court, he will be heavily targeted, and if Atlanta doesn't step up the intensity on the defensive end, I'm concerned about their chances in this series. So with that being said, after looking at each team's strengths and weaknesses, it's time to look at the player from each team who needs to step up in order to give their team the best chance of winning. We'll start with the New York Knicks and their sophomore player, RJ Barrett. As I mentioned, the Knicks can sometimes lack versatility offensively, or lack consistency at least, with their supporting cast. Due to that, I want to see RJ Barrett step up in this series. The Knicks can't just rely on Randle and D Rose. That'll only get them so far. And while Barrett has displayed potential and flashes of being that great third option and next dangerous offensive weapon for the Knicks, that's all we've seen. Just flashes. If Barrett is able to elevate his game this round, be a consistent scorer and creator, it gives Atlanta another option to worry about and opens up the game tremendously for Julius Randle and others. Again, the Knicks are only going to get so far with just Randle, so for them to maximize their offense and to avoid that stagnation they sometimes have, RJ Barrett needs to lift this series and provide them with the value he's shown he has potential to provide. For Atlanta, the guy I think needs to step up is John Collins. Collins has been great this season offensively and solid defensively, just a slight negative on that end. But he's been a great shooter for the Hawks and provides them a consistent 50 to 20 points per game. However, I think if he can lift defensively and be at least a positive on that end, he'll give the Hawks the best chance to win this series. The Hawks only have so many options to put on Randle, the Knicks' biggest threat, and Collins is one of them. He's got the athleticism to contain him somewhat and the overall physical tools to make things at least a little bit difficult for Randle over 7 potential games. Basically, I want to see Collins step up defensively and be the guy to slow down Randle, or at least slow down whoever he is guarding. If he can do that, the Hawks are instantly a better shot at winning this matchup, as their defense is already below average as it is. Collins has potential to be an all-star caliber player in this league, and he's got a big payday upcoming, so by making a name for himself in this round with not only good offense but great defense too, is going to enable him to maximize his bag and of course the Atlanta Hawks' success. Finally, before we get into my final prediction, let's talk about the keys to success for each team in this series. For the Knicks, their key to success will be locking down Trae Young and continuing their suffocating defense. If Trae Young's impact is minimized to a certain degree, the Hawks' offense becomes a lot less intimidating and it will give the Knicks the best chance to win this matchup. For the Hawks, their key to success in my eyes is outplaying New York's defense with their offense. The Hawks' offense is very good, top 10 for a reason, and if they can get going and break down the Knicks, there'll be a good chance to move on. That's easier said than done, of course, but I think with the tools they have in guys like Bogdanovic, Young, Lou Will, and more, it's entirely possible. But with that all being said, after looking at each team's strengths and weaknesses, the players who need to step up, and the keys to success, who do I have winning this series? I'm gonna have to go with the New York Knicks in 6 games, and here is why. Though Atlanta's offense can be fantastic, especially with Bogdanovic's play as of late, I just trust the Knicks defense more in a playoff situation. The game changes in the playoffs, the pace slows right down, and as the Knicks have the slowest pace in the league already, I feel like they'll be more accustomed to that entering the series, and especially if the series goes the distance. The reason why I have it going to 6 and I feel like there is potential for it to go to 7-2 is because the Knicks offense can sometimes be lackluster, and if it goes stagnant in the playoffs, I find it difficult for them to find the flow offensively that they'd want, and that cold play will open the door for the Hawks, so I can definitely see them pinching a few games. However, as the Hawks are in the NBA's bottom third defensively, I think New York should recover enough, even if they are playing mediocre offense, giving them the advantage in this series. No discredit to the Hawks, I think these two will have a great battle, but with home court and a play style I personally believe will transition well into the playoffs, I have the Knicks moving on to the second round in their first playoff berth since 2013. And that will conclude the video. What do you guys think of this? Who do you have winning this series? The Knicks or the Hawks? And in how many games? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.
Big Jeezy got it locked, boy.